He says that it's more realistic that okay. I don't understand really, but okay. It means something. Yes. Okay, that's right.
Are you okay for tomorrow with the presentation being on the website and download it?
I've got yours. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so when was he looking for? Yeah, I took 5 days. It's really okay. Let's go.
was going to be entirely on the marine theme. Of course, as we know about living on small island communities, we are at the mercy of the weather and other issues as well. So thank you for those people that stood in yesterday. It's probably been a surprise to them to be on stage quite so early. And thanks to the late comers who were going to fill in this afternoon. This was taken to be largely marine theme this session, but we've got contributions from Francis, who's going to be talking about Guernsey's approach to Asian Hornet, and also Liz is going to be talking about the Guernsey Biological Record Centre. But largely, the issues of climate change on marine ecosystems is going to be a significant problem in the coming years, with ocean acidification, ocean rise, and the massive impacts on the various marine ecosystems around the world. And of course, I'm a terrestrial ecologist, and I'm very appreciative of the fact of how difficult it is to see what is going on under the water. We were talking last night at dinner about some of the difficulties in diving and finding the places that we really want to map and monitor. And again, the hidden damage that is caused by dredging and things like this, which if these same approaches were being taken on terrestrial land, I think we'd all be up in arms about what was going on. And of course, the importance of engaging with the public, because it's only us, we are the public too, and all our friends, colleagues, family, and everybody else out there. It's only together that we can really address some very difficult challenges we're facing in the next few years. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Francis, who's going to talk to us about the Guernsey Asian Hornet strategy.
Thank you. Apologies, I should have been doing this back to back with Bob yesterday, but we were stuck in Guernsey, so you've got me today as well. For those of you who haven't seen an Asian Hornet before, catch me afterwards. I've got one in a resin block here. This is one of the queens that we had in Guernsey in the spring. Just gives you an idea of what they look like and how the sizes are. They're not massive, they're not these things that big as a farm or whatever. So there's the Asian Hornet. I've got a little animation of some film there. If you like to just show that one. This was a hornet that was taken from a nest last year. And it was actually in one of the labs estates buildings. Very typical movement, very, very decisive movement, and largely black, velvety. Get rid of that lot. Thank you. Really good photo from Andy Markfield here. It just shows the common wasp, very clearly yellow and black, and the Asian Hornet, which is not yellow and it's not stripy like the wasp there. Size difference, obviously. 95% of our sightings this year that we've had since January, we were getting reports they were queen wasps coming out of hibernation. 95% have been this really beautiful insect, the hornet mimic butterfly. It's about an inch long, and we've had huge numbers of people getting really excited, which is brilliant because the public are vigilant and they're reporting it to us, and we can then say, great, thanks for that, but it actually isn't an Asian hornet. I had another animation in the middle here that unfortunately doesn't work. It shows 2004 up until 2018, an actual animation of the spread of these hornets. So the original point in there somewhere, 2004, bought in pottery in a consignment. It was a single fertile wasp, queen hornet that was overwintering. And from that one single hornet, they think that that was the cause of the spread. The Asian hornets are now into the whole of northern Portugal. They're down into Italy, into Belgium, into Germany, and you look how close the English Channel is to Kent, it's frightening. The spread, 60 kilometres a year, something like that. In places it can be more. They're using to follow the coastline, they're going around the outside, but eventually they'll go across the whole middle of the continent. So looking at the, basically one new country a year during this timeline, it's just frightening. So the first ones in Channel Islands, as Bob said yesterday, 2016, spotted in Jersey, same year, also had nests. Alderney, 2016, our first one is 2017. And again, single hornet found, and then in the same year, wasps, nests in the southwest of the island. UK situation on the bottom here. They had 3 sightings this year, all over the place. South Coast, near the Isle of Wight, also in Staffordshire, and also to down in Nest. So it's frightening how fast things can actually get out of hand. So last year, 2018, our status on the island, we had 70 confirmed Asian hornet sightings on Guernsey. Looking at where the nests turned up later in the year, first nest in July, then later on in August, September, all kind of clustered around certain areas. This is interesting for me. Sorry, just go back. Apologies, sorry about that. The last sighting we had, no actual hornet was caught or captured. It was a clear photograph, and that was in October 1st. So the big question for me is, was this an inbound migrating queen across from France? We don't know about the dispersal of the queens in the autumn. Was it a worker just blown across, or was it possibly a queen? So our land management team just looked at the spread and looked at the predictions. They looked at all the best possible scientific research, mostly from France and Spain, and frankly, doing nothing was not an option. So the land management team came up with the Asian hornet strategy, put it before the states of Guernsey, and fortunately the committee supported it and they got funding. So it's a 3-year strategy. There are 2 of us in post. I'm project coordinator and Damon Harris is field and research officer. So our main aim is to prevent establishment of hornets in Guernsey. Clearly there's a public health risk. These things are fatal. Mustn't get alarmist about it, but if you're allergic, if it's done multiple times, then you're fatal. But we've also got our biodiversity, pollinator species specifically. So our main objectives are to protect the public. Let's try and reduce and control the population. And I think it was plucked from that 8 nests last year to try and keep our numbers of secondary nests down to 10 per annum. That was the target. Effectively, collect data. It's so important that we learn about these hornets and their spread and their ecology. So we're looking at the life cycle. Like all wasps, single queen emerges from hibernation in the winter. She makes a primary nest. She does that entirely on her own. It's made from wood. She chews it, makes paper mache, and she'll raise about 30, 40 workers. They then move off. If that place is not suitable, they'll make the nest somewhere else, typically in a tree, but we know from experience they could be anywhere. They're underground. But by the time you get to the end of September, you may have between 5, 10, 15,000 workers. The bigger the nest, the more hornets. Around about this time, you're going to get the sexuals, the males and females emerging. They're going to mate. The rest of the colony dies off, and it's only those fertile queens that go into hibernation. So looking at this, we think actually there's a good point to try and control. These are expensive to get down. They're often really difficult to reach. A lot of equipment, safety factors, and also you've got a lot of angry hornets. So we looked at Alderney in 2018. They put out traps across the island, caught 55 queen hornets in the spring. So we thought, actually, could we do that on Guernsey? The grid showed that we'd need something like about 270 traps spaced every 500 meters, because we know that the movement of hornets is not that great. So we thought, if there's one in the area, traps every 500 meters, we should pick it up. So these traps are baited with a sugary substance. It doesn't kill them, it just attracts them. This sort of project had never been done on this scale before. I think Alderney was probably the biggest, and then we tried it on Guernsey. The reason is that we're a small island. We're quite isolated and relatively low numbers of hornets. By the time we worked out who owned each one of these little points on the map, we had to do some adjustment. We looked at 273 volunteers. In reality, it went down to 260. Still pretty good. So these were the actual points that we had trapped on every one of those. Big gap in the middle where the airport is and the runway, big gap where the golf course is up there, but we surrounded it. These are the challenges. We needed to get volunteers from the general public. We basically phoned up Mr. Brown and said, would you be able to look after the hornet trap? And that's what we did across the whole island. A lot on farmland, a lot of leased land as well, so it's all a bit complicated. We had to get the traps out. Literally, Damon and myself got in the car, took the traps, knocked on doors, left them on handles and stuff, and got them out. By the end of March, we were worried because the temperatures were moving up. hornets are probably going to be out of hibernation by now. We had to modify our traps because this isn't without its critics. We know that these traps will catch non-target species, predominantly wasps and also flies. So that is an issue that we are aware of, but we had to kind of think, let's try it and see what happens. We had to get volunteers trained up. We couldn't do that, so we gave them a leaflet that hopefully explained what to do. And then the important bit at the end of it, actually evaluated the costs versus the benefits. And I've got a poster across the other side. Look at that a bit more to see some of that information. So, spring queening, it was a catchy title. The public got it, it was really good. We produced flyers, we produced an animation to go on Facebook. It was a minute long, it was really quite catchy. This is the kit that we gave to people. So there's the basic feature of farm trap, qualified trap. The label to tell people, don't touch, this is being looked after. Each trap had a number, so we could GPS, we'd do it on our Digimap, ArcGIS tablets. We could locate every trap. Information, bottom plate, and a hornet in a bottle from last year, so you can actually see what one looks like. These are modified traps. We put sponges in, so that anything going in there that is not a hornet can sit on the sponge. We also put holes in. We now know that we can make these 6mm because hopefully queen wasps will be able to crawl out. Next year, if we do it, we're going to put holes much lower down so things can find holes on the sidewalk. But we caught queen hornets. There's one from Jetu. So the traps went out on March the 22nd, and we brought them back in on June the 3rd. So it was about a 10-week period. We were getting quite a lot of white-tailed bumblebees, literally over a weekend. They were going into traps. We knew at that point every trap has to be taken down. So we phoned and told everybody to stop trapping. So basically, we're looking at April, May. This is the results of our spring queening this year. Then, so we had 24 confirmed sightings of hornets, and 10 queens were captured, and 1 primary nest. So that was on Guernsey. But we didn't work in isolation. We put traps out on Jetu, and also Sark had their own as well. So looking across the whole island, combined total of 22 queen hornets, 10 on Guernsey, 11 on Sark, 1 on Jetu, nothing that we know of on Herm, and Alderney, I think, on right to 6 queens. We caught our first queen in April 18. Quite late. I think about 13 degrees is the temperature that the queens start becoming active, but we may be able to shorten that trapping period. We know that the queens are not coming out until then. Very active period, middle of May and also early June. Again, is it easterly winds? This is an interesting one. If you assume that every queen is potentially going to raise 5,000 to 10,000 workers, every queen we take out is one less nest to control later in the year. After the traps came back in, we did the track down trample. It was a campaign really popular. Basically, don't kill an insect just because it buzzes and it looks funny. The public have got a habit of just squashing things. So this leaflet was saying, don't kill it. Watch it, take a photo, see which way it flies, give us the information, and we'll do the rest. As I say, we've got a lot of reports of moves, but every sighting goes on a database, and this was started from 2017 on. This is just a, sorry, I keep pressing the wrong button here. This is a snapshot really between June and July. The red are positive sightings, orange possible, negative arrangements. Ignore the two in the middle, they're on Sark. We had a 10-week absence of hornet sightings between June 9th and August 20th. That isn't to say there weren't hornets on the island, it just means that people weren't seeing them and we weren't knowing about it. But you've got to ask the question, is that gap, 10 weeks, an impact on the spring queening? The figures again, so 2019, 31 sightings, 1 second nest treated. The year before, 70 sightings, 8 nest treated. So looks like we were having an impact. Following on from the positive sighting, it's then the meticulous, really, really detailed work that Bob was describing yesterday. You have to encourage these hornets to a bait station. We were using our traps with the lids off, but having spoken to Alistair and Bob, we realised that these bait stations with a wick were much better. Because things don't go inside, they're not drinking the liquid, they're not getting covered in it as well. They sit on the top, there's red admiral butterfly, so other things were having a drink, and they fly off. You watch them, you get the direction of flight, and eventually, with a lot of observation, you find the nest. This one was in a sweet chestnut tree, quite a way up, but fairly easy to get to. We treat all our nests with stuff called FICAM-D, which is pesticide. We treat them having done a full risk assessment. We now have an in-house pest controller, which is Damien, who works for us. He's the Asian Hornet team. So everything is done by us, full risk assessments, all the paperwork is done, and that nest was safely removed with the operators wearing Hornet suits. Then the interesting bit, when you get in the lab, start taking these nests apart and seeing what you can learn from it. This was one in a hedgehog house, year 4, ground level, so hornets can turn up anywhere. This was part of the lower part of the nest we took down this year. You can see eggs, larvae, just in the early stages of development. So we want to know about the number of combs, the size, the vigour of the colony. We want to know the number of workers, if we can try and calculate that. Probably the most critical thing is how soon are these male and female hornets being released from these nests? Because if we know that, we've got a date, a kind of a window that we must try and deal with nests. Because if we leave it, they're gone and they hibernate. And then we've got a problem next year. So again, there's a lot of science involved. Damon's got his micrometer. Sorry, I'm doing it there. Damon with micrometer there is measuring every single hornet. It's tedious work, but it's a really big database. Because we can now diagnostically identify queens and workers by measuring abdomen width, wing spacing, head length, and wing length. And we can tell just by looking at the hornet and measuring it, is it a new queen? Is it a queen in spring or is it a worker? And just this year we've actually had some of these drone pupae. These ones are not quite ready to emerge. They've got very small wing buds, but again, that's the first time we've actually found drones in the nest. So a lot of science involved, but also we're learning from other colleagues all the time. So these pictures, most of them come from Jersey. So we know that the hornets, they're not fussy. They'll take carrion, dead meat, oysters they like, so orange fish farms. They come to barbecues, they're taking meat off people's plates, and they'll look for meat wherever they can get it. They also like cambial sap, where you get diseased trees, so they'll drink this sap, sweet source of sugar for the adults. Really hot weather this year, they were coming down onto a pond to collect water, because they make their nest with paper mache, they need to chirp, they need water. They also use the water to cool down the nest, so they actually put water on the nest to let it evaporate and keep the uncool. This is worrying, very disturbing, because we know our coastline is full of cliffs, and this one turned up about 3 or 4 meters above the ground. But if the hornets are starting to go into cliffs, that's a logistic nightmare, because how on earth we're going to find them and then take them down. And also in France, in Spain, 2% so far, they go underground, just like our common wasps. So again, the risk to the public of disturbing those nests and actually just locate them, removing them safely. So, all a bit of a worry. So I'll put these 2 slides out to show what the hornets got in their favour and what can we do about it. So, abundance of prey species, no problem. Single mated queen can start a new colony. Yep, we know that from China. Hibernation period, so they can be accidentally transported. Off you go to Jersey or France, put your tent in the back of the car, put a queen hornet in there, put it in the shed. Next spring, hornet pops up. These are all things that are happening. They come on ships, they could be on planes. So that's a massive issue. We know from their mating that they mate with several males. So you're going to get a genetic mixing. Gene shuffling takes place. Normally on an isolated island, a single insect would be doomed, but the fact that they're mating several times, you get the genetic variability. So they're not going to take off. Climate's good, no problem. No predators, they're apex predator, they're top of the food chain. And they like each other's company. You see pictures in France, we have 4 or 5 nests in one tree alone. So their density is no end to where it can go. We looked at the distances, put these on the map. Predominant winds for us, prevailing winds are that way. So any hornets around here probably may not head out to sea. The other problem with that is they probably would smell plants, maybe flowers, maybe honeybees. Maybe they'll smell honeybees from that distance and they'll fly towards them. So insects probably can track down places to go. So they do fly out across the sea. We know that because Alistair from Jersey said that somebody was kayaking and a hornet flew past his kayak and you saw it beautifully. There's also a little reef out here with a little bungalows, almost found in there. When the winds are coming from the southeast or east, it's an easy ride. A Hornet flies about 5 meters per second. They've done that in the tunnels in the University of Exeter. You add a tailwind to that, and you're getting journey time of an hour, probably from Alderney to France. So it's a massive worry how quickly they're going to come. What we got in our favour in Guernsey, we are the furthest of the Channel Islands from the French coast. Autumn, spring, queen migration, we just don't know. Hopefully it's low numbers. Maybe the queens are dispersing a kilometre or two and staying around the area where they were born. We've got a lot of people on our island, as you know. Our population density, it's kind of gave me a bit of a shock, 965 people per square kilometre. A lot of them are in St. Petersburg, but that's still a lot of people. Jersey is a bit more spread out. The more people we've got, the more people maybe will be looking out and phoning us and reporting it. That's one of the things in our favour. We're a smaller island, so large-scale trapping is feasible. We've done it, and it was a lot of work, but we can do it. Simple fact is, on the timeline, invasion timeline, we're 1 year behind Jersey, so we can learn from their experiences, and that's really important. We can try to keep on top of what they're doing and do our best to work together. Rapid colonisation of Asian hornets led our states to act fast. The Asian Hornet strategy was put into place this year. It was approved in January to full-time members of staff in post. Damon works half days, but we're in post for 3 years on this strategy to see what happens. We've got good relationships with our neighbours, so we speak to Ham, Sark, Jetu, Jamie. I've had a good chat with him today. So we're working really closely with all our neighbouring islands because there's no point in us doing everything and then Jetu's got hornets. It's another picture. So we're sharing advice. We went out to Sark last Friday, to try and look at a nest in Harbour Hill area, massive trees and really fine. We didn't find the nest, but we saw hornets working. But we can try to help them with their trapping. And new techniques, how to monitor hornets, how to work them back to their nests. The other thing in our favour, we've now stopped using private contractors. We have concerns about the amount of chemical being abundantly sprayed here and there and everywhere. If it gets in the watercourse, it's absolutely deadly. So we've done it in-house. Damien has now got his pest control operative technician's licence, passed all his exams. We can go out and do the nest in our own time. We're not having to pay somebody who's in a hurry, who's got a job to go to. So it's safer, and we can hopefully save some money there as well. Looking ahead, we definitely need to work on our trap modifications because any bycatch is bad. But at the end of the day, we have to weigh up all of the benefits of taking hornets out of the population because we just know that each hornet can take 50 insects a day. I think that's a really conservative number. Yeah, 50 honeybees easily a day, 10,000 hornets. It's a lot of insects being predated in a year. We want to share best practice. So this is really important. We have a good understanding with our medical professionals. I've spoken to the fire service. They've got a really nice high reach appliance. It can go up very tall, but it needs hard standing and it's a big vehicle. But we can buy that if we need to. We need to get a coordinated response with JESIC, our emergency services, just in case we did have something happen where the nest maybe fell out of a tree or there was a massive attack. One of the nests, I think, in France was a hedge trimmer that took the nest apart. Tractor, a cab driver, followed hornets, somebody driving a car in the window. So, there could be an emergency. So we have to work in a kind of joined up way. So if there was a response, the police would know what to do, the ambulance would know what to do. I think this is really crucial. Maintain inter-island cooperation and collaborate wherever we can. I love going into schools. We've heard that earlier yesterday as well. Children are brilliant. One little boy came to his granny and said, Granny, there's an Asian hornet in your trap. She was monitoring one of our spring traps and she said, no, they're just lost. I said, a man came into school. I've seen it. It's a hornet. She went to check and it was an Asian hornet. So this 11-year-old boy is the future because he noticed and he did something about it. So we're going into schools, into all the sixth form centres so that we've got potential research students coming in 2 or 3 years' time, doing project work, and maybe they're the ones who can do the research at universities to help us possibly think about the future. We're also developing links with other universities. So I know Peter Kennedy at the University of Exeter is helping us out with lots of stuff. This is a question mark whether will be pheromone attractants that will attract just Asian hornets in the future, either the males or the females. We had a visit by UK pest controllers. I know there's been a lot going to Jersey, but we actually had a good contact with this chap here. And he's on the British Pest Control Committee, so he can spread the word across the whole southwest southeast of the UK to try and have a coordinated response. Prognosis, this is my final slide. Basically, it's shown from all the research, local control has a limited impact on the spread once they're established in the region. So if you've got Asian hornets and they're settled, you're not going to change that status. You might take a few out, but you're not going to reverse the tide. There remain an ever-present threat to Guernsey. Eradication is definitely not an option because we've got that re-invasion the whole time. Jersey response is vital here because we can work together and try and get the islands so we're not having that stepping stone effect. We tried to keep our nest below 10 secondary nests per year. We had one this year, so economically, yes, that's great success. I think permanent staff who know what they're doing, not just paid staff, but people who are volunteers who've got a massive amount of information and knowledge, but people who are dedicated to be part of these Asian Hornet teams to do all the kind of groundwork, get out there and find the nests. We need to review our strategy and change our approach, depending on what happens. We don't know about the long-term impact on Asian hornets on our local insect populations. So there needs to be a huge amount of research because what's happening in France and Spain? Are they seeing great drops in insect populations? Are the honeybee numbers crashing? We don't know. So I think on Guernsey, we would probably need to have a lot more of a baseline of hornet populations. This is a Barry and Hornet project is really good. Good to help. So I'm sorry I've taken out a bit of a rush. But, that's
It's great to see the collaboration between the islands and the lessons we can learn from each other. And of course, the huge involvement and dependence that we all have on people who volunteer their time to go out and do all this work. Certainly, the vast majority of our Asian control work that's happening in Jersey is done by people who care enough about the environment to put in large amounts of their time to do it. So, thank you all. I'd like to introduce Kevin and Gareth, who are going to talk to us about their touch tank and about just generally educating people and getting their involvement in the fantastic work that the Marine Conservation Society is doing.
Well, first of all, thank you, Francis, for your talk. And of course, a really good segue into our own talk is the education and how important it is to actually inform and involve our young people. And our talk entitled Mohammed and the Mountain, and I'd like to introduce you to my Butterfield Marine Watch team. Last year at the Inter-Island Environmental Conference, I gave a little bit of advanced information about the fact that we were hoping to involve a sponsor in this project. We knew that the project was not going to be successful without that sponsorship, and thankfully they've come on board, and we've now got our Butterfield Marine Watch team that's going around the school. So we've got Gareth here, and actually Gareth is going to be playing two parts on the stage. He's going to be playing the part of Gareth Jeffries and of Chris Isaacs as well, like Shakespeare. But Chris is somewhere about, but I know that he's looking after the touch tank, which we've set up over the road at the information centre. Already have guaranteed that for the next conference in Alderney, they will manage to get the touch tank here, but not necessarily us. So going on to the next slide. So what we're going to do really is to give you some background. First of all, about why we really need to teach the young people about marine conservation. Going to outline the concept of the touch tank. We're going to say a little bit about what we understand now from our experiences and looking after the creatures and how we were able to study the creatures through the project, and then finally finish off with how we're running the project. Gareth's going to outline how he developed the equipment and Chris is going to demonstrate the touchdown with the scaled down version. So you can all go over there and have a look and have a chat with us about that. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Now, first of all, a bit of background. First of all, about Sea Search. Now, Sea Search is a project for volunteer divers and snorkelers, and anyone really who's got an interest in underwater life, want to learn more about it, and want to help with to protect the marine environment around the coast of the UK. Now, when I set up Sea Search in 2010, with the help of Sea Search UK and the Society Jerseyese, what I hoped was that I'd be able to establish a diving community that would be supportive of the project. But I quickly realised that the volunteers with the necessary knowledge and the skills or the motivation to carry out the survey sufficiently enough to promote change was going to be a big challenge. And the first observer course that we ran included a high percentage of youngsters, and it was apparent that they wanted to get involved. We had no diving club in Jersey, so we didn't really have the opportunity to extend their diving skills. And also I knew as a teacher myself that really the school's curriculum was lacking information about an understanding of our own subtidal areas that would help us to move towards a balance of ecology. So the big question in my mind was, well, where and when should we begin recruiting our Sea Search divers of the future? Well, it's children really, isn't it? Okay, so now some of you who have got an education background, I'm sure quite a lot of you are familiar with the Maslow model, which is moving through our basic needs up towards our actual knowledge and ability to move forward in our understanding. So I actually developed my own model from this, and based on the Maslow model, what I saw was that we did actually have a pathway through our curriculum that would encourage young people to develop a better understanding of island marine conservation and the importance of citizen science. Now, the mountain actually highlights the psychological impact on our children who are deeply concerned about what is happening to our environment and the threats that this is presenting to our future. For example, you know, look at the recent situation where Greta Stromberg actually got on a little yacht and went all the way to America to make a case and come all the way back again. And I think that highlights just how concerned our young people are. Now, one very popular activity, of course, is rock pooling. And, you know, people within the audience here I know are involved with that sort of activity. And certainly, you know, we feel that carrying out rock pooling is an answer to engaging children in marine conservation. They're interested in it, it's exciting, it's stimulating. Okay, but so what we actually looked at over the last 8 years in the marine biology section of the Society and Jersey Sea Search was a way to develop the experience of going onto the beach and ways that we could include citizen science. And of course, the big challenge really is engaging participants and gathering information that provides reliable baseline data, which we need in support of setting marine protected areas. Now, we've trialed programs such as those shown on the screen, and our most promising seem to be the Sure Thing project. However, after several attempts, we recognised that it did not relate sufficiently to our own island. There would need to be a great deal of modification for it to be of relevance to our students. And also, it really lacked the dynamics that would focus the attention, particularly of our younger students. So even, you know, a simple BioBlitz project involving young people can be a bit of a problem, you know, and it starts off with a sort of conversation about, you know, can we go rock pooling, please? Because the youngsters are quite interested in that sort of idea. And of course, the teacher's going to ask the head of school. And unfortunately, the answer comes up, well, I'm sorry, you know, the school budget and the curriculum requirements just simply cannot justify it. So although it seems a good idea, logistically and from a health and safety aspect, it's really not very easy to do. So looking at some of the arguments for and against it, you know, I mean, one of the big things is that rock pools are not possible for some children for various reasons. The other thing is that when you actually go to a rock pool, actually at that time, of the tide, most of the creatures are hiding, so they're not very easy to see. And what you're not actually seeing is them actually behaving and reacting within their normal environment. Needs to be fitted into a busy curriculum. Some schools it's easier to adapt to than others, but it is challenging. Of course, if the weather's bad, we know all about that at the moment, it's going to affect it. It's costly because the schools then need more staff to do that sort of thing. And one of the things that we've particularly noticed is that certain beaches are more accessible to school groups, so they're the ones that get visited all the time. And really, it's a challenge to actually find those creatures. You've really got to know where to look. But of course, there are positive arguments as well. I mean, obviously, it is a different learning experience. It's a healthy activity, and of course, it gives the children the chance to see the creatures in their natural environment. So, there are arguments for and against, but obviously, those really there are particularly difficult. So, we're just going to play a little video now to just give you a little bit of a feel for this. Have you got any sound at all?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is a very ancient species of mollusk. Essentially, this is older than the dinosaurs. This has been around for 4 million years, already in that same sort of form, or fossilized form. And it's like a suit of armor has plates so it can pull up into a ball.
If we can avoid unnecessary visits, limit the number of times the vehicles coming down to this area. We've also got people placing nets, and they need to look after those nets to make sure that they're not down here too long. Lines with hooks on that could affect animals. So what we're trying to do is to support these people because it is part of their livelihood, but at the same time safeguard the Ramsar sites.
Move on from there, you can see it's a typical rockpooling weather for the Channel Islands. Partly because of that, now we believe that if managed responsibly, the touch tank can produce a viable alternative educational experience for the children. Now, one of the main questions is, are touch tanks ethical? Obviously, there's a lot of questions being asked, is different in aquaria, keeping animals activity. So these questions are really, or conversations are really important to have. There's another questions here, how the animals cared for, how long do they stay in the touch tank, if they're rotated in the tanks, how they are handled, and can they be returned to their habitats. Now these questions that Rogue took on board when thinking of or designing the touch tank itself. You can see here, this is the touch tanks as it is at the moment. We have little smaller tanks at the back where we can keep some of the species, more delicate species or rotate species around, a bit of space to give out of poking hands distance, and always having people around the touch tank all the times engaging, but also managing the touch tank and safeguarding the animals that are within it. Now, the first challenge I had when coming up with the idea of the touch tank for Jersey and taking it to schools is really looking at what would be suitable. We find a tank that would allow us to take the touch tank into the schools so that they don't have the issue of having to move all their children around. But you've seen there were a few that are actually built generally in America, different places. If you can see up at the top here, which is the bottom first, that's like the top one. Top one, there we go. This is one you can buy. It can be £8,000 to £10,000, so it's not cheap. It comes fully assembled, which means it's very difficult to move around to different schools, to take in, take out. It cannot be adaptable for different age groups. Not disassembled, very heavy, needs to be moved around by 2 strong people and large storage space. Whereas our tank here, as you can see, considerable cost saving for all the parts and all the filter equipment needing. It's like flat pack furniture. We can pack it down, put it into the back of my family car, take it in and take it out within a day. And it takes up very small space. A lot of this is stored in my garage at home when it's not being used. Unfortunately as well, we've had the help of the Butterfield Bank. This has helped provide the funding that really it enhances the experience. We'll be able to add we have a television screen above so we can do presentations, videos, but really the funding for us to continue going to different schools as a lot of the time that it takes and a lot of the effort going in will be very difficult for us to, purely on a volunteer basis. So having that funding behind us has been vital really in getting us in and being successful. And what is also great about the touch tank, it allows people of children of all ages to come up, but also those that might have mobility issues, special needs, that they can really enjoy the experience as well. We're one of the schools in Jersey here, and there we even have where you have such plastic jars where you can briefly put a species in. You can take it to the students so they can hold and view the animals outside of the touch tank. And the reactions you get, the experience you get from it is amazing to watch, really. And I'm collecting the species, as we discovered yesterday, people discovered yesterday. It is quite an effort, and you also need to keep these species temporarily. So my role as Chris. Chris has set up the whole laboratory. This is in his home, and he set up all this tank system, all these siphons. So this would be good quite well in any sort of college or university setup. But he set this up in his house purely for the purpose of holding, studying these creatures, and being able to take them out and really showcase these around the schools and to the children. Oh, yes, and this also allows that he's been able to study and experience some really amazing activity. So this is our orma, a very special animal to the Channel Islands. And this is just in his tank. This is just part of the video library and photo library is collecting, but actually to see an orma doing that has been quite special. It's not something that we've experienced before.
With good planning, the whole school can experience this unique opportunity. And what we do is, obviously, we need to limit the number of children that are around the tank at the same time. So alongside that activity, we've also got things like learning about mollusks, crabs, and one of the aspects, of course, of the school curriculum is learning about skeletal structure. So we've got these things going on alongside, and going along those lines, we can process through our whole school in a day. So it really works excellently for us. Really, as you can see from this slide, we can bring in various different elements of the school curriculum. So we're relating our own environment, our own conservation needs to the requirements of the school curriculum as well. So that's a really very important aspect of the project.
Our current development is we're creating sort of species cards, but I'm doing it in a top trumps manner. So this is the top. We'll just give some of the identifying features of your green short crab, a little bit of information, food web roll, but on the back giving a score of its age or its length period, its some of its adaptations, give it a score from 1 to 5, 1 to 10. And so children can use this with the touch tank as a learning tool on field trips, but also through games, through fun. They can have a top trumps and they'll engage with animals, and when they have these and then see the animals in the tank, or when they go to the shore, it really gets them enthusiastic about these sort of things.
Okay, so really what I'm saying as well, going back full circle to the sea search concept, is that we're introducing students not just to the creatures, but the ideas of data gathering, which is an essential element of citizen science. They're learning the importance of that, and of course, later on, we can run them through the sea search course, and they can then help us with our very important observer forms, which then go into our national databases and form the basis for the marine protection proposals. Okay, so I'd just like to say a big thank you for allowing us to give you the presentation, and we'd like to invite you over to our touch tank, which is in the visitors centre there. Do come over, have a chat with us. And one of the things I would like to say is that Butterfield are really keen for the touch tank to be introduced to the schools within our own Channel Islands. They would very much like to see the tanks in schools in Guernsey, Alderney, Sark, and of course for all the other delegates, if you're interested in doing something similarly within your own wild islands, and I'm not trying to say that children on those islands are wild, by the way, we would happily talk to you about that as well. So thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much. It's a great project to get the children engaged on the work. I'd like to hand over to Sam. Sam there, Sam. Thank you very much, Sam. Who's going to be talking to us about your PhD project.
Okay. Hi everyone, so I'm going to be talking to you about my PhD project, which is assessing the effectiveness of the marine protected areas in Jersey, but under the context of changing reefs to fishing pressure. This is it's quite a big project, so it's in association with other organisations. It's being supervised by Plymouth University, but the States of Jersey Marine Resources Fisheries team being very helpful with the supervision and also the use of their boat. Also, the Blue Marine Foundation is collaborating on the project and is funding most of it. But they've also got lots of other funders and helpers, Jersey Marine Conservation, a lot to get. So when the fisheries boat can't take us out some of the shallower sites, Kevin's been very helpful at getting us to and from the reefs. And also my supervisors as well. So the impacts of fishing, I'm sure most of you know them, that we can have quite a big impact on the marine environment. There are two main modes of fishing. It can be static or mobile. So static are things like pots. Mobile gear are things like dredging and trawling. This is the effect that trawling can have on the marine environment. These are photos from Lyme Bay. This is before the dredging event, and this is after. It's an area that isn't dredged on the top, and you can just see the difference. This is a lot. All of the sessile creatures who can't survive that sort of damage. So you get reduced biodiversity, you get changes to the balance of the species, and the habitat degradation. So how do we find a balance between conservation and fisheries? What can be allowed? What habitats can sustain different types of fishing? And how do we also know what the habitat was before? In some places we don't have a baseline. We don't know what was there before the fishing was going on. So this is something that was found in Lyme Bay. So I've got this one. This is something that shows that without the baseline there, you can't know what would be there originally. So they were using towed video to assess the assemblages around the Lyme Bay reef, and they found that once the fishing pressure had been removed, there was the areas that were it was sediment. They didn't think there was a lot there, but it had been being dredged before. And once that pressure was removed, some sessile species started coming up from those areas. So they had soft corals and rhizomes, and the things that we've seen here, these started to appear out of the sediment. So it wasn't just sand there was rock underneath, it was the sediment veneer on top. So, but without having removed the fishing pressure, you wouldn't know that was there. This is Lyme Bay as my first case study to show that mobile gear, when pivoted, you can see an increase in species, a change in the habitat. And we're seeing something similar in Jersey. This is a reef to the south of the Minkies that was sand, and it's an area that is currently being dredged right now. But when we took some videos down there last year, we found that these Sibella worms popping up. I don't know how long they've been there or how long they take to grow, so I need to research a bit more. But that would suggest that there's actually rock underneath the sand. It's not just a sand habitat, because they will need something to attach to. But I need to try and find out a bit more about them. And then another case study is Mandy Bay. So in this case, it was less of a change in the habitat, but it was more to protect species that were there. So the no-take zone was put in. It was one of the first no-take zone in the UK, and this it offers the most protection. So a marine protected area can have different measures of protections behind it, but no-take means you can't do any fishing, you can't take any living resource out of that area. And they have seen an increase in lobster abundance, although no effect on brown trout as of yet, which is similar to Lamlash Bay, where this is also a no-take zone, which is Scotland, so that's no-take zone. and they've also seen an increase in lobsters, but less brown crab. So there could be predation or competition with the lobsters and the crabs. So that's one thing, and the reason why they need to be monitored is you're not sure what balance is going to change there with the species, which is something which will bring me on to Jersey. So we've had no-take zone, marine protected areas put in around the minkies and the equipoise. We've also got no pilot zones, which are the larger zones here. Pilot pots are a particular type of lobster pot, which are very effective at catching them. So now that they're in there, we need to monitor what's going on, see what any change in the balance of species is, and if there's any change to the habitats. Are any of the more fragile habitats starting to expand? To what's going on now. So we've got the minkies and the southeast coast. Highlighted these both first because they both have seagrass in. And for anyone who wasn't here yesterday, Mel gave a very good talk about the importance of seagrass, but it's a flowering plant rather than an algae. But it's adapted to live in the sea, and it's very good at creating like a refuge and a nursery area for lots of species. So it has roots under the sand that stabilise the sand, and you'll get lots of other things living associated with living there. It's a little bit hard to see, but this is a site to the south of the minkies that was dredged. This is from 2003. You can sort of see the lines in there. So those are the tracks from a dredge that went through, and there's currently no seagrass here anymore. But this is an area that we're monitoring now that there's about half of this is protected from dredging, the other half we can still go to. So to see whether there's any reseeding there or keep track of that. But there's definitely less going on here now. When you dive this side and the seagrass, which is just a bit further northwest, northeast, and the difference in biodiversity is quite obvious there. And then, so again, equipoise in the southeast coast. So I should have mentioned that this is an older no mobile gear zone that's been in for a long time. So we're using this as an older control to see whether there's already a change here from inside to outside, but whether these zones are going to become more like the biodiversity we're seeing on the southeast coast. So on these two sites, we have Mel. I don't know if anyone here knows or if everyone knows what Mel is, but it's a coralline red algae. It's very good for supporting biodiversity. It's a 3D complex habitat, so lots of things can hide in the little areas that are created. And it's also very important for scallops. So this is an area that was being targeted by dredgers because they can make a lot of profit from the scallops they're getting there. And also it's targeted by scallop divers as well, which is a much less invasive fishing technique. So now that that's the only issue with this is because it does grow very, very slowly. It's quite hard to see recovery in a short period of time. But nonetheless, we'll still be going there to see what happens. This is from a 2015 study that I did as part of my undergraduate degree. These are just some of the key results. So this is the mean percentage cover of Mel and the mean weight of Mel. So this is from quadrats, whereas this is from core samples. And you can see generally there's less in the dredge sites. This one was an anomaly. I'm not sure why it's higher there, but then this is there's much less Mel cover at dredge site 2, and you can see the associated, there's less Mel there. Yeah, less Mel at the dredge sites, and then in areas where there were less Mel, we were seeing less species. So now that we've got the areas protected, I'm serving them using a various array of techniques. So we've got tow video, bait video, potting grabs, diatomium, and fishery trees. So it's been quite a lot. It's been a long 2 field seasons. This is the tow video. This is to see the changes in the habitats. So it's a really cost-effective way of sampling a large area to see what habitats are there in the first place. We don't know exactly what's in our subtidal environments. And then with that, we can get play. Sorry. So when so it's just a camera that we tow behind the boat. And yeah, that's one of the more interesting tows that we've had. Sometimes we go from miles without seeing anything. But yeah, so you tow it behind the boat. There's a cable that goes up to the boat, so you can watch it in real time, so you can see what's going on, and then you can adjust your course if you need to. And then you've got to try and pull out of the way when a rock comes really quickly. So the only issue with this one is you don't really get a great idea about the the mobile species. So most of them are swum away before you get there. They can sense it coming. If you hit the bottom by accident, that's going to scare a lot of things away. So to combat that, we have beta video. So this was designed. Actually, Chris helped very much in the design of this. We had our own idea. He's going to do that. It's much better. We've got a GoPro attached to it's actually a tent pole with like a metal swivel, and then we've got the bait down the other end, and we've dropped these across different habitats across the protected areas to see what's living there, and it'll just bring everything to it that is living nearby. We only leave them down for an hour. That's about as much video as you get anyway. And so this allows you to see what's living in the habitat. So you've established what's there from the tow video. You use the beta video to bring the species to you. And you can put all that information together to get an idea about. Some of these videos have been really great. She's just showing off as well. And then some of you get an idea about the predators that are around as well. So we've got a few bullheads that come up every now and then. They definitely give it a good go and try and keep it away. But then the only problem with this one, it's not very good for the slower living species, the shellfish, the crab, and the lobster. Most of them are nocturnal anyway. He does that for quite a while. So to get an idea about the crab and lobster, we have the potting study, which is, we don't do this across all the different habitats because it's quite an intensive survey to be able to do. But we've been putting these across the no mobile gear zones. So like the ones that the echoes and minkies. There's also the no parlopod zones, so looking at whether the areas that are excluded with the most effective netting methods, whether there's more crab and lobster in those areas. And then there's the no parlopod. And so the sites will have open controls, one that's in the no parlopod and then the one that's inside the no mobile gear. And the same with the echoes, although the nice thing with the echoes is they're not. The no mobile gear zone isn't fully encompassed within the no parlopod zone, so we can have to choose. We've got 4 different treatments there. Nice. Then lastly, we've got the grabs as well, so that's to assess the faunal component of the sedimentary habitat. So the thing that we found when we did my undergraduate degree is that, well, it's something that's quite well known from the literature as well, is that the biodiversity associated with mel is actually within it, so you're going to take a grab sample and see about the mollusks that are living inside. So you can see there's loads of different types of mollusks living in here, clams and bivalves. So that's helped that, and then also sampled stickling pits, sand mason worm habitats, and other sedimentary habitats to get an idea about the difference that we have in here. And then finally, we've got the dives. So this is also been done in collaboration with Jersey Marine Conservation. Kevin very kindly lent his camera equipment, quadrats, and got to the sites, and it just gives you a lot more detailed information about any habitat that you're more interested in. So the seagrass and mel, it's nice to get sort of like a seaweed catalogue from them, get a close-up look at some of the species, and just get a bit more of a feel for what's going on down there. And lastly, we've got socioeconomic side to everything. So this is more to see what's happening to the fishermen, to the catch that you're getting from these areas. So I've been interviewing fishermen, I've also been looking at landings data to see whether there's going to be, to see what the baseline is, so what were they catching before the zones were put in, and is that going to change now, is it going to affect their well-being and their livelihood? And this all we put into a big model at the end. It's a program called Invest that's me to figure out how to use. But it's a fisheries production model. You put in everything about what's their life histories. You can input the landings data as well. You can make predictions. It will give out some ideas about what would happen with future environmental changes. So if we close up this area, how much impact will it have on this species and that species? And a few initial findings. Most of this is it's going to be a 3-year data set, so I don't have any hard results at the moment. But we've as would be expected, more juveniles on the seagrass habitat. We spotted a 2-banded bream in one of the protected seagrass habitats on the southeast coast, which is great. We've had that verified. We had a video of it, so it's been confirmed that's what it is. It's actually a Mediterranean species. So I think that's something that the beta video is quite good at seeing those less well-known, the less well-seen species. It gives you the video footage of them, and then you can see whether there's anything coming up with climate change. Are we getting more Mediterranean species? I've heard from the fishermen from the surveys that they say about the divers seem to think that the quality of scallops is better in the protected areas because they're not being damaged by dredges. But unfortunately, lobster is down across all treatments at the moment. I believe it's 2018 against 2019. The scale bar is different as well, so that's last year. We had up to 55 lobster total in an area, where it's down to like 35 now. Although Shanghai crab not doing too badly, it's gone up in the no mobile gear zone and no part of zone at the new trees. This is 30 strings, so 3 strings, 10 pots in each site. So it's not the biggest sample size, but that still takes over a week to get, so it's quite an intensive survey period. And yeah, most of it have to wait until the end of the 3 years. So if I can report the next or the year after, I can give full update. So thank you.
Talk to us about sustainable fisheries in Jersey.
Hello everyone. I wrote a talk title quite a long time ago when Roland asked for it, and then we wrote a blurb. Paul wrote a blurb a little later, and that related to his interpretation of my title, and then decided he wasn't coming because he doesn't like flying. So these are then my slides that reinterpret his blurb. So forgive me if it's not quite well planned. Also forgive me for the quality of the slide, because I am not Sam or Kevin or Gareth in their artistic skills or any more brilliant bird ones this morning. So hopefully the pictures will be reasonable. This is Paul Chambers. I obviously didn't pick the kindest photo of him. Looking at the blurb that I had, we were meant to be looking at some of the current issues associated with managing Jersey's fisheries and look at some of the biodiversity hotspots as well. I'll touch on the biodiversity, but I'm mainly going to talk about the issues we're having with sustainable fisheries management, the knowledge gaps that we suffer, and the work we're starting to do with other partners to try and bridge some of those gaps. In terms of our key habitats, we've got kelp and seagrass. Seagrass we've heard a good bit about already. Kelp is very important to us and a huge part of our biomass. Merle, this is one of Kevin's photos from the trash merle bed and the dead spider crab in the middle of it. Of course, Sam was showing some nice merle. I showed some smashed up merle. And sand mason beds, which we're starting to become aware just how important they are as well, which is not something that I, in past years and decades, have really put enough consideration into, but just their value in terms of the infauna is vast. It's kind of important. So focusing on the species. Brown crab is something that we're really, really worried about at the moment. The catches have declined about 50% since 2011. We recognised this problem 3 or 4 years ago. If you're familiar with all the tidal currents around here, and who in Alderney can't be familiar with tidal currents, but when you get down a bit further south, quite often between Jersey and Guernsey, there's something that we jokingly refer to as the Jersey-Guernsey front, which is not the same as the Judean People's front. But it's actually a sort of scum line you'll see across the water, where the water mixing divides, and the water around Guernsey and further out seems to be much more of a sort of channel system. When you go in towards the Montpellier, Mont Saint-Michel and Jersey, you get this area where the water comes in and circulates for around 6 weeks. So possibly we see a magnified effect in terms of things that are going on in the wider channel. We may be seeing them earlier. And we noticed this drop of crab starting back then and really started to highlight it 2 or 3 years ago. And brought it to the attention of various other people and said, is anyone else experiencing this? And then in the last couple of years, Brittany said, yes, we're starting to see it as well. And Cornwall, the inshore fisheries, inshore Inshore Fisheries and Conservation Authority. Started those as well, and the other South Coast elements are too. DEFRA have then looked at the reporting in terms of crab landings in the North Sea and the Irish Sea, where there's good catches at the moment. So it's something we're having to investigate. There's obviously a bigger problem than just Jersey, which we thought it might be at first. So we've got the planned catches. We don't know why. It could be temperature. It could be disease and parasites. It could be impacts of the spawning stock further out of the channel. And we still don't know the full extent of the time yet. But we're working with the IC's working group on crab, which we hosted in Jersey last year, and that's North Atlantic crab scientists working on everything from snow crab and king crab to our crab and lobster species that we're used to. We've got an IFCA crab meeting in October we're going along to, specifically looking at the issues around the channel, and there's a Granville Bay crustacean working group with our Breton and normal cousins, which is also the next one of those is in October. So it's worrying for us because it's a big part of our fishery, and I know a really important part of Guernsey's fishery as well, and key species in terms of our marine fauna. Whelks, another big value species for us, and some of you had to suffer in SARC through my urinal and whelk talk a couple of years ago, and stand by that they are important both for the upward part of the food chain as a food source for others, and the downward part in terms of dealing with a lot of the detritus. Their main problem in terms of understanding the stock is that they're really actually incredibly difficult to do proper biomass and stock assessment on. Currently, we get landing per unit effort data, and we do an annual potting sample, which gives us on-the-ground density studies. But really, to build that out into full biomass assessment from which you can then manage a fishery is proving really difficult, and that's across that range. No one has a perfect method for them. You can do things like denuding an area completely other than by dredging it through and through and through with small dredges and then seeing what repopulations are like. That's pretty damaging. So it's not a well-modelled thing as yet. We do go out and do annual trials to try and work on it. We've got quite a good conservation management system in for them, and we're working with the French on that as well. And the IFCAs have now come on to think about whelks too, and they've set up a whelk working group. It's proving a more and more valuable fishery, and more of our fishermen want to get into it as a secondary line, especially as we've now got on Jersey, we've now got 2 or 3 processing facilities that have opened up for direct export to Korea. And as more and more of our fishermen are becoming really worried about whether they're going to be able to land into France post-October or whenever this thing happens, the idea of having a crop or a catch that they can process and freeze and export not via Europe is becoming more and more attractive. So the potential pressure on this is worrying, and something we need to keep tight control of at the moment. Scallops, one of our other big species, and a really big fishery to the French as well. This is another one where we've had trouble. They grow really fast in our waters, and they're considered a good quality of scallop. They don't grow huge like the ones you get off Scotland, but the meat's generally pretty good as far as the fishery is concerned. They're quite balanced in terms of our regular fishing and the boats, both French and Jersey and Guernsey, that we get into our waters on a regular basis. But what we have as well is this nomadic group of French boats that will fish in the Bay de Seine or the Bay de Saint-Briac, and then if the fishing's bad, may come down because they have access, and then suddenly 15 boats come up and trawl up and down off our west coast for a couple of weeks and have a huge impact on the stock. So managing that sort of non-regular element is proving really difficult for us. We're doing our first stock assessment this year in association with Normandy, first proper dredge survey in several years. So we're going to start to get some good data on that at long last, and that will hopefully start to look at answering some questions about, really where should we be dredging, where shouldn't we. Obviously, Sam's highlighted the impact of it, but it does provide a part of our fishing economy, and it does support the desire for seafood on the island, especially amongst tourism, which is one of the draws to come to the Channel Islands is being able to eat fresh seafood. So there's a balance. As a marine conservationist, sometimes fishery stuff, I have to say, makes me scream inside, but but in the job you've got to think about more than just your own personal desires for where you might want to see things. Lobster as well. I'm not painting happy pictures about shellfish today. We've got a 27% decline in landings over the last 3 years, and as this is our most valuable stock, this is again really worrying. The price also has not really kept up. I mean, the price hasn't changed all that much in the last 20 years. A basket of lobster is worth not much more than it was 20 years ago, but everything else costs an awful lot more. We've seen in terms of the efforts of the catch quite a difference, especially in the last 3 years. Now, whether that effort is going to decline with the declining catch or whether people are going to arm up and fish harder is hard to see. But we're curious to see where that goes, and we're now working, having seen what happened to brown crab, we're working really hard with our fishermen to come up quickly with some management measures where we can try and make a difference, even if the impact isn't entirely due to activities in our waters. We want to try and do everything we can to preserve what we have in our waters so that it can be as sustainable a fishery as possible. There's also some research going on which is quite worrying, that shows that the L50, which is the size at which 50% of the stock is sexually mature, may actually be 103 to 107 millimeters carapace length eye socket to there, as opposed to the 87, which is our current landing size, which is it's a small bit of research being done out of Orkney at the moment by a PhD student called Matt, who's not happy to publish the data yet because he still needs another sort of year's worth of information. We're supplying out to him to do some analysis across the whole of the UK, but obviously that's a fairly worrying factor coming to light, because everyone across Europe was for a fair while pretty happy with this 87 landing size. Bass as well. This is one where there were really worrying signs a few years ago across the whole of the channel and the region, really, and ICES suggested a zero catch of bass commercially, which then went to the fisheries meeting in Brussels in December, and everyone said, can't do that. And there was a bit of argument, and they came back with some restrictions, the best one being the closure of the winter pelagic fishery in terms of impact, or positive impact. But Jersey came down rather harder and completely closed recreational fishing for a year or so, and really limited back bass fishing to 10 small boats, so that the local stocks had a serious chance. And we're seeing, mostly anecdotally, I have to say this because we haven't processed the data we are getting yet, but really good, strong cohorts of juveniles coming through. All of our commercial fishermen that can do it have to record the length of every bass they catch. So we're getting thousands of bass records now, which is starting to build this really good data set. And we've now got anglers who we're giving little packs of bass cards to so they can record their catch and contribute to that data set as well. The big question we've been asked that we're trying to look at is, can netting form part of a sustainable bass fishery? And the instant sort of thought in everyone's mind is, no, how could that ever be possible? But there's been relatively little study on it, and we're hoping to get a budget for next year to carry out some netting studies looking at different mesh sizes, different setups of nets, different soak times and fishing techniques, and see if actually there is a set of circumstances under which netting could be considered part of a sustainable fishery, with minimum bycatch and high survivability. But that'll be a really interesting piece of work if we get to go ahead with it next year. And then we've got a whole load of other fisheries that need work on. Yeah, I thought that might be provocative. Obviously, bream, we have nesting sites, but we haven't had a real chance to look at those. We want to look at side scan sonar. We're hoping to borrow one from the UK to start doing some real surveys of where their nest sites are and what we can do to protect them. Ungulate ray and small eyes have been closed quite often during in our areas, so we're but at an EU level, and we really need to do better work to see what that's really like here. Spider crabs seem healthy at the moment. They seem to go in odd waves over several years. And then there are a few other fisheries like the old tuna that was caught last year, and we've had one or two other reports of them being caught as well, less publicly than that. And there's a lot of pressure amongst both sports fishermen and the commercials to allow some sort of tuna fishery. But well, with all the work I've shown you that we're trying to do,
it's hard to also find time to work on all of these, but when public pressure gets really high, we have to try and look at it, at least do the assessment work to say, is it or is it not valid, and have a strong government position on it. So with a team of 3 odd scientists, it'd be a lot to get through. But that's what we do at Fisheries, where people say, what the hell do fisheries do all day? And the biggest threat are these horrible things, which are just at night could slip a little bit, which I just, maybe in 10 years, that's all we'll have in our seabed, you know. So we'll have to find a way of eating them when everything else is gone. On that happy note.
So this is going to talk to us now about the Global Record Centre and their work in Guernsey and across the
First of all, thank you very much for rescheduling all the talks. I thought I was going to get out of it. However, actually this works out quite well because the first talk yesterday was talking about knowledge gaps. And I sat and I watched, we sat in the airport, in Guernsey airport, live streamed and went, oh, well actually most of what I want to talk about is covered. So you should now have a pretty good understanding of what I'm going to talk about. The second is in your programs, I originally said I was going to report the first results from Guernsey's first ever BioBlitz. I'm not actually going to do that because, as other people have mentioned with their projects, the analysis isn't quite finished. However, tying nicely into the marine theme today, I will talk about another project on dolphins. So I'm Liz. I'm not actually a marine biologist originally. I'm more sort of a polar oceanographer, working more with the chemical and the sort of the big system processes. But that means I'm used to working with large data sets, so the Biological Record Centre was a fantastic opportunity. However, we are data rich and information poor, or DRIP. And this is actually quite a common complaint for a lot of organisations. You have to justify everything, so you collect data. So you accumulate over years all this data, and then you have this mountain, and you don't actually have the resources or maybe tools or the knowledge to analyse it and use it. So if we've got mountains of data, what does that look like? Maybe it looks like this. These are, well, all of these are historic surveys. It's a huge wealth of information there. And as part of going through that, we actually discovered this. This is from the 1800s and is an ornithological record from Societe. And this ties into a nice talk we had this morning about the introduction of sea eagles. And in 1897, a white-tailed sea eagle was captured on Herm. And they also mentioned that it's the third eagle captured in the second year, and there's another one shot on Burku. So that record in the Isle of Man, that the last breeding pair was in England, could actually, I mean, we have evidence to support that as late as 1897, that they were travelling through the Channel Islands. So perhaps there used to be a historic route there. Now, I wouldn't have even been able to say that a week ago. But data, scientific discoveries aren't just necessarily hidden in mounds of data that are in old notebooks or cupboards. They can also be actually digitized in data sets. Because while this data set is fantastic, if we're not doing anything with it, what's the point? So we want to combat DRIP. And we can do this in a variety of ways and use the data just, sort of very basic analysis, starting with, species distribution. Is this changing over time? We can identify novelties. And actually, the modern world is the perfect time to do this. We look at the explosion of social media. 10 years ago, if someone came to any of anyone who with the knowledge and said, I've seen a pallid harrier in Guernsey, people would have been like, no, I think you're wrong. Describe it for me in minute detail. And we'd still probably, on the basis of records and local knowledge, have said, no, that's a misidentification. Well, relatively recently, someone said, I've seen a pallid harrier. And then they posted that picture on Facebook. And yes, it is indeed a pallid harrier. So we can identify novelties. We can also, as Francis has just mentioned, talk about invasive species, particularly those wonderful slipper limpets. And actually, this ties in nicely to what we spoke about yesterday about knowledge gaps. So when I took over the Records Centre, I was, we've got nearly 1 million records. That's phenomenal. And then I looked at the distribution of those records. We've got fantastic records, the terrestrial realm, but actually we have a huge knowledge gap in our marine ecosystem. And again, talking about how the modern world is really helping with biological recording, you can now use various apps like iRecord, EpiCollect, the Tracker app. I don't have a picture of the Tracker app, and Odysseus. But then this is also a double-edged sword, because while the public is really becoming engaged, and a lot of these apps allow you to submit photographs, it means if I am someone who's just interested and I don't know where to start, one, you can be drowned in the information and decide, okay, actually, this is too difficult, I'm not going to do it. Or you find a recording strategy that you like, and then you exclusively stick to that. So that is the double-edged sword. But, we can try and combat that, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But going back to the data set that I inherited, even though a lot of the data was just being collated already, we were starting to identify some issues. And one of these was for a flagship species, the blackback meadow ant, Fonca potensis. And these are seen, so these we've seen a decline since the 1990s. Becoming increasingly concerned. So this species is associated with permanent grassland and heathland. And these habitats have suffered a major decline since the 1950s. It's also a flagship species for these habitats, which support a wide diversity of insects and plants and attract many birds to feed. So they are commonest on our southern cliffs. So we were concerned about this decline, and so since the 1990s, that's a decline of 42%. The blackback meadow ant is classified as near threatened on the IUCN Red List. But how can we actually go about, a useful and effective management for these? So as a result, actually I'll just go back to the 2017 Nest survey data. We actually embarked on a campaign of not just actively managing the nests themselves. So they build their nests where they're exposed to the sun, and they look like you can kind of see sort of like loose clippings. Maybe someone's just dumped a pile of old grass and sticks and things, and they were becoming overgrown. And where they weren't becoming overgrown, the previous maintenance was strimming, and that was cutting through the nests, which was causing huge destruction. So we started working with the cliff maintenance team, educating and working with them, and through our volunteers, one volunteer in particular goes out and walks the cliffs every year. And she's done a lot of work with maintenance teams, so she times her visits before they go and do maintenance on certain areas. She marks the nests with flags, and as a result of this, we've actually, at least if it, this is only sort of a year's worth of data, but we may have at least halted that decline. And this is fantastic because it's not just from our side. We've started to work in collaboration, working with the maintenance teams. It is citizen science, it's volunteer work, and it's education. When Julie goes out to walk the cliffs, people see her with her rucksack of red flags and clippers and actively engage. Now, I haven't talked for a very long time, and unfortunately, we've only got 5 minutes left. So I'm going to So again, partnership, data sharing, citizen science, finding our sharings and industry engagement, and finding education, all of that has happened in that project. And we've then taken that to our next project, which is to do with dolphins. There's a fantastic poster across the road, and the methodology that's being used in France is something that we have adopted. So the Dolphin Project was launched this year in partnership with all of these organisations. We are doing data sharing with Sea-Watch Foundation, and it uses citizen science. So all of our surveys, both marine and shore, we have been training up volunteers and running trips. And this has sparked such interest that we are now getting people reporting other species like tuna to us, because they've heard about it through the Dolphin Project. So yeah, we're also engaging with, out of the blue commercial like fishing trips. And we'll be doing the analysis this winter, and we hope to continue this again next year. And the Dolphin Project was possible thanks to funding from the Condor Community Funding, who gave us £1,000, and we were the runners-up for the Insurance Corporation Conservation Awards, and they also gave us £1,000. So yeah, just to finalise, so 2019, it's really about coming from us working on our own to engaging with everyone else. It's one of the main reasons I'm here, and I'll be sitting with all the other sort of data collectors at lunchtime to try and work out ways we can share data in the future. Work with the Societe on the Orma project, work closely with the Biodiversity Partnership and Sea Search, and they were heavily involved with the BioBlitz. Well, they weren't heavily involved, they were co-run with the, also we've joined up with Mel and Project Seagrass, and again, it's all about sharing data, and let's not be Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney site, let's be the Channel Islands, because we have a much larger voice if we are all shouting together. And also, when I took over the record centre, I said that we had very little marine data. I was astonished to find we have almost no plankton data. It's in the public domain at the moment that the rainforests are burning, and this is a huge concern, but actually more than 50% of the oxygen produced on the planet comes from phytoplankton. And we have no phytoplankton data, which, yeah, I still can't quite get my head around that, because they are so sensitive to changes in sea temperature, and also the shift in the chemistry of the seawater as it burns. And that directly affects our entire food chain, from fish up to us. If we don't have any plankton, then we're not going to worry about the slip Olympics, because we're just going to have a marine desert. But I don't think we need to panic, because I think as we work together, we can certainly mitigate some of the effects and develop strategies. So I'm going to, and then get the dolphin. I'm going to wrap it up there, because I'm very well on time.
Got a few minutes for any questions for our speakers for the session. Any questions? Oh, yes.
Just a question for Francis. Sorry. You didn't mention his findings. How do you put enough of them for fishery?
Yeah.
Are you doing anything to collect data on the sightings so we can kind of track? Over on the south coast, we are watching sightings going crazy. The graphs on vertical, and we're pushing our guys to say they're really here. We need to think about managing them. I'm wondering what your suggestion is.
Well, after Sue and your talk a couple of years back, we had some more management measures around them, and the fishermen were very much in agreement that we should make sure they have a good chance of recovery before anyone touches them. Fishermen are, when they catch them, if it's possible, depending on conditions, putting them into bucket boats or tanks on the boat, keep them alive, bring them back so they can be tagged and then re-released as part of the French scheme. But I think that's the French bringing that to an end and starting a new data collection scheme on their planktonic phase instead. So that's been running, and we obviously make any records we can get of those. But it's not something we're putting a specific focus on. We are seeing number increasing in the same way as the UK, but I think in the opposite effect of our weird bit of water, we're seeing that more slowly than is happening in other places. With the larval distribution that the Isles of Scilly modelled about 3 years ago, which is really good and shows that it's going the whole way up into the North Sea and through the Channel, doesn't really make it into our packaged water very easily. So I think it's more a case of them walking in than coming in. Yes.
Austin, as a marine conservationist,
Do you want to take my fisheries off?
do you think we should be considering no-take zones, and why weren't offshore reefs designated no-take zones as opposed to just,
Mobile gear zone.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Gareth can tell you about the no-take zone that is being considered and is being proposed by the Sausage Day. But in terms of why the offshore reefs weren't put to full no-take zones, is that they, well, A, we can't because of the Bay of Romford agreement, so we have to do things in collaboration with the French in the areas of shared water access, so we can't make unilateral decisions about elements like that outside of our 3-mile limit. And B, they are incredibly important fishing grounds for a lot of people's livelihoods. There is a sustainability, we believe sustainability within a well-managed possum fishery that means that they can be extracted from without necessarily denuding the area. And that's why as well as being no mobile gear zones, there are no parapet zones, which means that with open pots, there's less of a risk of ghost fishing and die-off fish if the gear isn't turned over more regularly. And let Gareth talk about no-take zones.
Because one of the points in the take there was saying the agreement in place because based on scientific evidence, but one of these you have the elements in the UK with 3 no-take zones there. But we highlighted an area, it's important in the south of Jersey, which the proposal to make the no-take zone has been passed, so they're just looking for, at the moment Jersey doesn't have the legislation to put in place a no-take zone, so they're updating legislation so they can do that, and then it's going to be a 5-year study of that area, and jointly with Sam's PhD study to compare the differences, what the effects of it are, and then possibly using that data and reassess other areas as well.
So hopefully next year we will have our
and legislation?
the architecture.
Last question here, Francis John. One of the interesting things that the North East Certificate has done is actually allocate a scalloping zone. I don't know if you know that. So that's really exciting because then you can actually do some science in that zone, see what the capacity of the numbers of vessels and the seasonality of that is. But we'll get a standing stock biomass for your fishery, rather than everything being open and then boom bust. And they did that because of the nomadic problems in Scotland. So I think you could do something similar within your 3 nautical mile and suggest that you're outside of that. So I don't know if you're going down that route.
Yeah, it's what we're looking at. We're doing some base data first, but it's something the French are familiar with from Brittany, so we can also hopefully get a management system like that into play in the future. Thank you.
We show our appreciation.